Hey everybody, I'm Chris Watson and welcome to this edition of the NYSPHSAA Captains Club, presented by the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association. Today is the first day of the NYSPHSAA Mental Health Awareness Week, a week dedicated to talking about mental health, focusing on yourself and providing resources to those who might need it. In this edition of the Captains Club, we talked to a former NYSPHSAA student athlete who's been open and honest about his mental health struggles, about the journey he's on, and about helping others who might be in the same place that he was just a few short years ago. As the closer for the SUNY Oneonta baseball team, Mike Losak has one role: protect the smallest of leads, finish the job, win the game. Closers have to be fearless, have an unbreakable resolve, and that's a perfect way to describe Mike, and it has nothing to do with the way he pitches.
Depression is just one of those things where it can take over your entire life. I wasn't going to classes. I wasn't doing my schoolwork. I felt like I was going through the motions at practice. I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't sleep. I wouldn't clean my room. And I was very irritable. I would snap on my friends for no reason. And, it really hit me when things started affecting baseball and I wasn't doing very well.
Mike was a three-sport standout at Calhoun High School, part of the Belmore-Merrick Central High School District in Section 8. But even before high school, Mike was struggling with his mental health.
Really what it was for me is I was just that one kid that got bullied. Every school has one. Every school has one kid that's get bullied, and that was me. It started off with verbal stuff, making fun of how I walked, how I talked, how I wore my hair, my acne at the time, everything. Just anything they could think of, they picked on me for. And then physical bullying started. I got pushed into lockers, tripped downstairs, my book knocked out of my hands. And that sort of led me to start, self-harming. And that went on every other day for about 4 or 5 years.
In his eyes, the bullying, the depression, there was only one way to make it all end.
When I was 12 years old, 15 years old, and 17, I attempted at suicide 3 times at those ages because, I felt hopeless, I felt trapped, and people always say, oh, that's the coward's way out. But no, for me, that was my last resort. I didn't want to do it, but I just wanted the pain to stop. It just felt like a cycle. I'd be good for a little while and then things would just blow up. And I would bottle things up all this time and not talk about it and not get things out in the open that, that's what I had to resort to.
He graduated from high school and made it to SUNY Oneonta. And that's when Mike started to take control of his own mental health, with a little help.
My girlfriend at the time, she's like, you need to do something. This is what's happening. This is what everybody is worried about. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that's what was happening. So I did that and I got the help I needed. And that first phone call to the counseling center was terrifying, absolutely terrifying, because I admitted I needed help. And for the longest time, I just dealt with it. But admitting that I needed help made it real.
He recognized his own issues and has a way of explaining how he dealt with it so that other folks who are really challenged, like, where do I start? He started.
For Mike, the way to feel better, to start the process of overcoming depression, was to just get it out.
When I was going through things in middle school and high school, people always called me a teacher's pet. I took that with a grain of salt because every time I would talk to a teacher, it would kind of ground me because they actually cared what I had to say and they listened, and we'd have great conversations. And do I care that people called me a teacher's pet? Absolutely not. Because if I didn't have my teachers, again, I probably wouldn't be here. I would talk to them every day. They didn't know what I was going through.
When Mike came to me, I was completely welcoming. I tried my best. I'm not like a pro at mental health or anything like that, but I took what I knew and tried to give him the cushion that he really needed. People need people to talk to. I
used to feel like a burden on people when I would talk to them about my problems, but I realized that not everybody's going to want to hear my problems, but the people in my support system understand that you know, this is how I have to deal with things. This is how I cope with things, that I need to talk about it, because if I don't, it's just going to get a lot worse.
Sometimes talking to the people you are closest with just isn't something that you can bring yourself to do.
My parents didn't find out about any of this until my freshman year of college. And I would have loved to have had them helping me, you know, when I was going through this, but I felt at the time embarrassed, and that, you know, I would bring shame to them, and then that would turn into them feeling like they weren't doing enough.
By his sophomore year of college, Mike was ready to talk, and not just to a few people. He was going to talk to everyone at Oneonta who wanted to hear his story. And he was also going to listen to anyone who needed it.
Student athletes just pick up the phone and say, hey, I know you did this. Can you talk me through it? I'm afraid to tell anybody else. I'm afraid to tell a teammate. I'm afraid to tell my coach. I don't want it to affect, you know, how they see me. And Mike has been carrying a burden like that.
It's been a humbling experience, because I don't want anybody to have to go through what I did. And people deserve to hear from somebody their own age, maybe a little older, because we all hear it from adults all the time. And a lot of times people don't listen to adults. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. You know, I always wanted to be liked by everybody. But ever since I started sharing my story, I've learned, and I've had to learn, that not everybody's gonna like me talking about it. Not everybody's comfortable with me talking about it. But it's such a stigmatized topic, and people are so uncomfortable with it, especially males, because males are viewed in our normative society as people who can't have these mental issues wrong.
And that's something he learned in researching depression and mental health, the gap between men and women.
There's so much on statistics with women and mental health, because women are statistically more open to talking about their emotions. But when you look for males, you don't find that. You don't find that because people don't talk about it. It goes underreported, and then, you know, that leads to, you know, potential suicide.
The stigma for student athletes is so great in their own mind, thinking that there's a weakness there. And I'm so proud that he's been able to demonstrate as a leader for the campus that this is perfectly okay. And I'm sure there's a lot of lives that he's touched that he's not even aware of, because we've been able to get his message out.
So much of what we hear and think about mental health is the negative thoughts. But there are little things you can try to help get yourself to a positive space.
I color in a coloring book. I bought one off Amazon, and that's just sometimes what I do. I listen to music, I work out, I do breathing meditations. That's something that's not talked about enough. You know, some other things that I do, I paint sometimes. I don't know, it just helps.
Some positive outlets I would say is definitely sports. I've talked to Mike about it a lot. Running, and that's what I do, I run, and him playing baseball. It's just nice to go off on the field, go on the track, and really just have fun, take your mind off school. It just helps being with teammates, laughing, joking around.
I personally don't think I would be here without athletics. Baseball is my passion. Baseball is what I love doing. In high school, I was a 3-sport athlete. I did cross country in the fall, winter track, and baseball in the spring. And, you know, track really kicked my butt, but it kept me active, it kept my mind off things, and it just let me go.
You think you're doing everything you can by hiding this secret, but you're spending all your energy hiding. When you release that and recognize that people are going to accept you for who you are, you can actually be the person that you want to be. And he loves baseball. He wants to be the best. He's gained like 60 pounds. He's throwing out 90-mile-per-hour fastball. It's like he wasn't doing that 2 years ago. And he was trying just as hard. He was putting as much effort into it, but he had this huge cloud over his head because he wouldn't release, you know, that authentic self and work on the things he needed to in relation to his depression.
Mike is so open with his struggles that he created a presentation that he has shared with fellow Oneonta student athletes, coaches at his school, and he's traveled the state to other SUNY schools to speak to other students about his journey.
In my darkest days, no, absolutely not. I never would have seen myself here. I wouldn't see myself talking about my mental health out in the open because of the stigma. But, you know, my goal is to break that stigma and to make the conversation more comfortable and more normalized.
it's a little emotional, you know. He's such a, you know, it really is transformative. You know, he was trying to do it all right from the beginning because he kind of found himself. And I think now, a few years later, he's a very thoughtful, mature adult who thinks before he speaks, who's trying to understand his audience to make the impact he needs to. And he's being his authentic self.
Overall, he's really grown and gotten through it, especially with sharing his story. He's super proud of what he's doing, and I am super proud of him too.
He's active in his school and active in the SUNYAC, the conference that Oneonta plays in. He was recently given the SUNYAC Award of Valor, which is given to someone for their abilities to overcome obstacles and serve as an inspiration to others.
It brought me to tears. I didn't know what to think. You know, this award is given to somebody who's overcome a life challenge and turned it into leadership and turned it into a positive experience for other people and being able to help people. So when I was awarded this, I broke down. I cried. So that was it was a humbling experience to me, and it validated everything that I had been doing. I'm the president of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee for my school and our conference, which is basically student government for athletes, and I'm the president of 2 honor societies. So do I think I would be here in this position if I didn't talk about my mental health? Absolutely not. Because I can't be my best person, my best self, my best, in the athletic realm if I don't talk about my mental health.
It's been a long road for Mike to get to this point, and it's not over yet. He works on his mental health every day, and that will never stop. And that's his message to anyone who hears his story. Find what works for you.
You're allowed to have these issues. It's okay not to be okay. You can't be perfect all the time. When it comes to a mental injury, there's no timetable for return. I have depression. It's something I deal with every day. It's not something that goes away. It's a lifelong battle. And, my advice to you is get help that you need. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Get it out in the open. Talk to anybody who wants to listen. And, even get your parents involved if you feel comfortable with that. But getting it out in the open, talking about it, allows you to be the best student and the best athlete that you can be.
Everybody who's out there who doesn't feel like they can be themselves because they're hiding this secret, they're saying, man, if he can do that, why can't I do that? And that's why I think he has been so impactful.
If you know somebody's struggling with mental health, a good thing is to just let them know that they're not alone, because there are so many other people that are struggling and you don't even know.
That's a message for everyone to take away. You will be a better you if you allow yourself to be well and utilize the resources and know that people are going to accept you for who you are.
Before I met Mike and before I joined SAC, I didn't know much about mental health. So I'm just glad that they both exposed me to the topic. And here now it's the main focus at my school and it's the main focus in the SUNYAC. And I just hope that we can shatter the stigma and get past the views around mental health.
It's brought me to tears a few times because of what I've been through, and now people are getting the help they needed, and it's becoming more normalized.
Mike Losak will continue to share his story and the program he created even after he graduates from Oneonta in May. Now, if you or someone you know needs to talk about anything related to mental health, please visit the National Alliance on Mental Illness's website at nami.org or call them anytime at 1-800-950-6264. For this edition of the NYSPHSAA Captains Club, presented by the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association, I'm Chris Watson. We'll see you next time.